You've learned that in order to be productive, you should get an accountability partner. But what if you're a complete loner? There are tons of books out there on how to use accountability to get shit done. But maybe that's for people with friends and maybe you're the kid that nobody wanted to partner up with, or maybe you just don't want to deal with people for whatever reason. Well, at the age of 10 years old, I, little loner Mai, cracked the code on productivity. I went from barely passing third grade because I never did homework to becoming an almost straight A student throughout middle school and high school. I graduated top 10% of my class by myself as a loner. No, I didn't read books on productivity. I could barely read in the third grade, and YouTube didn't even exist for me to learn how to be productive or anything like that. I definitely was not a child prodigy or genius, and in fact, it was the complete opposite. I simply had an idea that was so stupid but so simple that it worked. Basically, while most kids back then had imaginary friends, I had imaginary accountability partners. You're probably saying, Mai, that is so Asian of you, or Mai, that is so schizophrenic of you. You should get some help. But before you hate on my idea, allow me to elaborate. And if by the end of this video, if it's still dumb to you, give me a thumbs down, hate comment, tell me to get mental help, whatever. So I realized back then that I was always more productive when there was somebody watching over me. It's called social facilitation. Basically, the tendency to perform better in the presence of other people. But because little Mai didn't have friends back then to do homework with, or parents around because they were always working, she had to come up with a solution to get things done when she didn't want to, right? And the solution was to make up an imaginary person. So I would just imagine one of my favorite actresses or something proudly watching over me. And probably Lucy Liu, maybe because she was literally the only Asian to look up to in Hollywood back then. And I definitely wasn't gonna have Jackie Chan watch over me. I didn't know it at the time, but I basically created for myself an elf on the shelf. You know, that creepy little doll that parents display around Christmas so that their kids would behave. If you thought my imaginary accountability partner idea was creepy, what about that? Dolls are creepy as fuck, but every year people spend millions of dollars on that thing. And at least with your imagination, it's within your control usually, right? Anyway, Lucy Liu, she wasn't a totalitarian micromanagey figure watching over me or anything. She was a loving, proud figure who would just observe. And again, it worked. It made me want to be productive, to make my imaginary accountability partner proud. When I became an adult, though, I stopped doing it completely. And it was partially because I felt weird. Just like how you're supposed to stop having an imaginary friend when you're older, right? Eventually, you're supposed to grow out of it, I think, and normal people don't do that shit. But you know, fuck that. I'm the kind of person that is a little bit weird sometimes, but if it works for me, it works for me. And more importantly, I realized recently that my imaginary accountability partner is someone who some people would call God or a higher power, a higher self. Maybe even some people might imagine a deceased loved one watching over them. Whatever you believe in, whether you're religious or not, whatever works. Whatever gets you to show up as your best self. So maybe it wasn't that weird after all. And in the last couple of years, it's been me imagining my future self watching over me. But more importantly, this isn't just about productivity either. Whenever I'm going through something really tough, like anxiety, like depression, or maybe a breakup, or even something simple like getting myself over the hurdle of writing this stupid script, future me is always watching, but never judging. And as corny as it sounds, it makes me want to make myself proud. Now, obviously, this idea is not based on science or even logic. It's just me rambling purely about my real experience. But I swear, if you get over the weirdness of it, of having an imaginary accountability partner, it can actually really work. Obviously, make sure you've cultivated a decent, loving relationship with them. And whether it's your elf on the shelf, God, a loved one, your future self, your video gamer self, a celebrity, whatever it is, what would you do? How would you act? How would you show up as your best self in front of that person? Use a little bit of your imagination, and this might help. The end.